Hey guys, welcome into the 14. My name's Nick Cole, and we're previewing the Week 3 SEC betting action. Today, we're talking about number 22 Auburn going to visit number 10 Penn State in Happy Valley on Saturday night. This game is a 7:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff at Beaver Stadium in Pennsylvania. The game's going to be on ABC, nationally televised under the bright lights. From a betting perspective, this game opened as a Penn State -7. And the money has come in on Auburn a bit. It's down to Penn State -5. Over-under has moved somewhat as well, opened at 56.5, down to 53. Going to bring in our betting analyst, Christopher Smith. Christopher, what are you thinking about this great Big Ten versus SEC matchup?
Yeah, hey, Nick. Good to be back this week, and I'm really excited about this game. I think we'll learn a lot about both of these teams. Of course, Auburn with a new head coach and coaching staff, and Penn State with a new offensive coordinator. Should be a great game, but why don't we get into Nick's news and notes and tell us what's going on around these programs heading into Saturday?
Sure. First things first, let's talk about the weather. Should be a great track for a Saturday evening game, about as good as it's going to get. At kickoff, it should be about low 70s temperature-wise. We may drift into the upper 60s by the time the game's over, but there's really no wind in the forecast, and also the chance for rain is very small. So should be good for predictability on the betting side of things there. But some news and notes, just some things I'm thinking about going into this game. Number one, Auburn's 2-0 and has been really impressive in those two wins against Akron and Alabama State. But to me, this is the real start to the Brian Harsin era. This is the first game away from the friendly confines of Jordan-Hare Stadium, and then also the first game against a big Power 5 team that is predicted to beat them. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see what Bo Nix looks like in this offense under these lights. Obviously, they've got a couple of talented running backs they're really excited about. They've been scoring a lot, but this is really where we put Auburn to the test. And if they win this game, my eyes are wide open on this team in the SEC West moving forward. And speaking of proving yourself early in the season, Penn State has already kind of done that. They went to Wisconsin in week 1, in true Big Ten style, won a 16-10 game. And they didn't win a whole lot of style points in that game, but they're probably much more prepared at this point in the season for this type of matchup. And like you said, James Franklin's breaking in a new offensive coordinator. The players seem pretty excited about the early returns from that. So that's something to watch in this game as well. And then finally, the last thing I want to talk about, this one is something that people have probably been talking about in their own discussions this week, water cooler stuff. USC fired Clay Helton following a week 2 loss to Stanford. And James Franklin's name has been persistently mentioned all week long. And it's not the first time that's happened. You know, I used to cover Vanderbilt when James Franklin was there, and it felt like every 2 or 3 weeks, his name was being mentioned for some job that he ultimately didn't take. And James was really good at knowing how to play a situation to get a raise, right? Any sort of publicity about other places wanting to hire you was good for his paycheck. And so I think he understands that. And so that's why he doesn't dismiss these rumors, but it does create a weird situation where he says, well, I've got to go to my leadership council and make sure they understand that all this talk is not a distraction. And I'm sort of sitting here thinking it's a distraction that you're having to bring that up to them in the first place, right? But when they take the field on Saturday, I'm pretty sure that they'll find a way to put that behind them. What do you think, Christopher, from a betting perspective? Does that mess with you at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think if there was anything from USC or if there was any report about some legitimacy of him interviewing or them targeting him, maybe, but I don't see any of that. I see a bunch of guesses and hot lists and stuff like that. So that's all I see.
What else are you seeing from a betting perspective on this game? What do you like?
Yeah, so I think Auburn's offense has long been a source really of some consternation at Auburn, especially the last years of the Gus Malzahn era. So I understand the excitement right now. Brian Harsin always did pretty well with quarterbacks at Boise State, and Mike Bobo at least has been around the SEC a lot. And I mean, it's hard to scoff at 680 rushing yards on 9.6 yards a carry in 2 games, even if it was against Akron and Alabama State. Man, I mean, the offensive line, I don't think they got a bunch of NFL guys on it, but they are experienced. They got back all five starters plus a sixth guy who was hurt last year. And Tank Bigsby is maybe the best running back in the SEC from a talent perspective. And I think they found a real great change of pace back in Jarquez Hunter. And now they have to go against a Penn State defense that held Wisconsin to 3.1 yards per carry. Now, Wisconsin, their backs probably are not as athletic as Auburn's, but they do have a big, good offensive line. They do like to run between the tackles, which is actually what Harsin likes to do. And the thing that really helped Penn State's defense in that game is they gave absolutely zero respect to Graham Mertz and the Wisconsin passing game. So I think from a game plan perspective with Franklin and Penn State, that's probably what you want to try to do in this game is play to stop the run first and pressure Bo Nix and then see what happens. And Penn State's got a great secondary as well. But you look at Bo Nix, and I think there's a lot of hope around the program right now for Nix, just because it is a new offense. This is his third year at Auburn. Everybody's been waiting on him to develop ever since he beat Oregon in his first game at Auburn as a true freshman. But you look at his stats on the road, you look at his stats versus specifically against top 11 teams. He's played 8 of those games, and he's completed 52% of his passes, just 5.3 yards per attempt, 3 more interceptions than touchdowns. He's gotten sacked 17 times in those games. And, why is that? Nix has always struggled with pressure. He's the definition of a happy feet guy, or the Sam Darnold seeing ghosts memes. That's definitely what Nix does. You kind of buzz around his head a few times or buzz around his legs with some defenders, and he starts bailing out of the pocket almost immediately the rest of the game, at least to this point in his career. So Harsin is good. I don't know that Harsin and Bobo are magicians, though, or that they can just magically transform Bo Nix into a guy who is totally fine under pressure and against the best defenses doesn't get happy feet and doesn't get his clock sped up and doesn't kind of freak out. So that's definitely something to see. Also, maybe tough for Auburn to win one-on-one matchups out wide with their receivers because they're not great, I don't think. And Penn State's secondary is really good. And on the other side of the ball, Penn State's offense is definitely the question mark for the Nittany Lions. We mentioned Mike Yurcich at offensive coordinator. He's been a major upgrade. You have Sean Clifford actually throwing the ball downfield. And it seems like their offense has a chance to be much more balanced this year. Derek Mason, as you know, probably even outside of his head coaching time at Vanderbilt, he's got a pretty good career as a coordinator against RPO-based offenses that have a little tempo. But I think one thing that the odds makers may not have caught up on is Penn State's improvement, but especially Auburn's defensive line. They lost a ton last season, and even Kevin Steele was a big loss at coordinator, in my opinion. So I don't think that was really exposed against Akron and Alabama State, but my major question mark for Auburn coming into this entire season was their defensive line play. And I think against a team like Penn State, that's something we could finally see as a big issue for them. So, Nick, we went 500 last week. I think we lost a little bit of money with the VIG, but we're going to get back on the winning track this week. What's your bet on Auburn Penn State?
Well, first, before I give you my pick, you reminded me of something, bringing up Derek Mason, the Auburn defensive coordinator, former Vanderbilt coach. Put up a Twitter poll yesterday out of curiosity. I have a lot of Vandy followers about who are you going for? Are you going for the James Franklin offense at Penn State, your former head coach there? Or are you going for the Auburn defense under Derek Mason, with your other former head coach there? And my third option was take them both into deep water, which is an inside joke to Derek Mason. Always talked about taking his opponents into deep water and typically lost more than he won with that saying. And overwhelmingly, the results are still rolling in, but as of filming, take them both into deep water is winning in a close contest. So that being said, all jokes aside there, I like Auburn in this game, and I like taking the 5 points. I know it's a tough test. I know this is an unusual trip. It's going to be an exciting one, by the way, for Auburn fans who are making it. It's one of those once in a lifetime deals. You get up and outside of the SEC and get to see another one of the great venues outside of our league. But I do feel like what we've seen from them running the ball those first couple of weeks, yeah, it's against lesser opponent, but it's enough for me to think that Harsin can keep them in the game with that game plan. Be smart, Mike Bobo, experienced guy. Be smart on the road. Don't turn the ball over. Keep it a one possession game. And if I'm getting those 5 points, I feel pretty good about that. And to that point, I think both teams are going to try to make the other one blink first on the mistake side of things, which makes that under a 53 pretty appealing to me. That's a lot of points and a couple of pretty good defenses, I think, to keep that under. How about you? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm with you on under 53. I think if your sportsbook offers it, I would actually take a strong look at the first half under. My official play under 53, but if you have the option for the first half under, I like that even better. I'm going to take Penn State -5. We'll see what happens, but I think that the performance that Auburn had offensively in its first 2 games, the fact that there's a new coaching staff, I think there's a little kind of extra value, or there's some inflation on the Auburn offensive side that people are forgetting who Bo Nix is on the road, who he is against great defenses, who Auburn's receivers are, how good Penn State secondary is. So also the Auburn defensive line, again, I'll mention that. I think that this game will kind of remind people that they are going to struggle there this season and against good teams and in the SEC as well. So I'll take Penn State -5 and under 53. But for Nick Cole, I'm Christopher Smith for the 14, and we'll talk to you all next week.